So, hi, here with our friend Alejandro Rosbach from Maguey Imports, Maguey Spirits. Welcome to Sip Tequila, Alejandro.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, to finally meet you, and to be in this very nice space.
Great having you here. We love the BOZAL, the line of BOZAL. We've been enjoying it. BOZAL was one of the first mezcales that we brought in the portfolio of Sip Tequila, and is definitely one of our staff's favorite. Particularly Mercedes has a crush with the MEZCAL and the Jabalí. She just loves the name also.
Oh.
But so tell us a little bit about yourself, about your story with MEZCAL, how you got into the business, your background, what you love about it, and then we'll dive a little bit into the line of different expressions of BOZAL.
Absolutely, no, and thank you so much for the love you show for the brand, and it's a pleasure to being part of the initial brands that you got here. And so yeah, just to tell you a bit more about myself and our history as a company. In Maguey Spirits, we are a family-owned company that it's managed by, for the most part, by my brother and myself, and we have an amazing team as well right now. But we've been pretty much involved in the world of MEZCAL since I was 19 and my brother perhaps 17. So it's been a while now 35. So we were very fortunate to have an uncle that was in the business. Mm-hmm. So my uncle Arturo Lavalle got married to a Oaxacan lady that got him involved in MEZCAL.
Okay.
And so he launched a brand that is called MEZCAL Iba, which means cielo in the Zapotec dialect.
Okay.
And he was always proactive into getting us involved into the business. So it was an amazing experience to really go to the fields all the way. This was in San Pablo, Ixtepec, close to Cimatlán in Oaxaca. So
every 19-year-old dream,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
In Mexico, of course.
Absolutely. So imagine I was in Mexico City, and for me it was just a dream come true to be able to go to the fields and experience this, and then bringing that into the city with your friends and showing the MEZCAL that you were part of.
Right?
Yeah, and it was amazing. And my brother had always more like he really likes to get into stay in the production at the Palenque 2 weeks, and he was like, okay, now we have this amazing batch, and so I took that batch, took it to the city, showed it to the friends, and it was amazing, an amazing time. And so we really were able to get into all of the parts of the business, again, all the way from the HEMA to the process of production, and then to the final sales, and just I would say explaining what MEZCAL is. And I would say back then it was very complicated. I'm talking, imagine 2012, the information and the acceptance of MEZCAL was definitely not what it is right now. Yeah. So it was just okay, MEZCAL is it a tequila? And it was just that part of, that no, it was more education than selling.
And are you referring to Mexico or the U.S.? Because I found that even in Mexico, there's a lot of misunderstanding between tequila and mezcales and the different kind and different production methods. People don't know the differences and don't know how those are made, and they can't differentiate between a mezcal. They just say, most of them, it's probably an easy explanation, probably the bartenders use, that mezcal is like the smoky cousin of tequila.
Exactly.
It's not his cousin. It was before tequila.
Exactly. Right? The father. No. So I think that to that question is it was not only in Mexico. It was worldwide, but also Mexico. Because Mexico, again, 10, 14 years ago, it was MEZCAL. It was still the really community drink that was, the villagers, and it didn't really make it to the cities. Mm-hmm. And when they did, it was not the most best way to honor the spirit or to explain it. So I think it was a lot of education.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think my role into the family is company was education for like 6 years or more. Still today, but of course way more back in the day.
Yeah.
And
But at that time, were you really envisioning or focusing in the U.S. as your primary target for your product? Were you thinking Mexico is or targeting or?
amazing question. You know what? We were thinking everywhere but the U.S. somehow. Let me tell you why. Like everyone, the few brands that were already starting, they all focus in the U.S. And for us, it was like focus in Mexico because back then we pretty much had like 5 brands of the first wave that were already like in the market, restaurants, your liquor store, and so we wanted to be also part of a great mezcal offering that could be available for Mexicans within Mexico.
Yeah. What were those brands?
Union was already there. I would say Danzante Salipus. You would see Amores pretty much came out at the same time as my uncle's brand.
Okay.
What others? Sort of like that first wave of Brujo had already like started like 1 year or 2 years prior to us getting involved. So it was like that time. So the momentum in the market was growing, but I would say the brands were not like established yet. And so it was a good moment, if you wanted to express, to put your brands and your creations in the market, it was a good time because people were experiencing.
So you saw the growth in the Mexican market.
Yes.
And in other markets?
In other markets as well. Because what was happening, it was so fast that all of a sudden, like, boom, all the big players, decided to get into the game. And so you saw Signum was already launching by Bacardi and this and that. So you were saying, I was already starting to see that Mexico was going to be pretty much a fight versus the big boys, and we were a small independent company, right? With limited resources. So I would say as a company we had two ways to go. First, be route to market, to be fast within Mexico, so that we first comes first serve in a way. And the second one was international markets. So we were the first mezcal to be sold in Israel. We were one of the first waves in Spain, Canada as well. So it was also focusing in the international market,
right?
But not specifically the U.S. because, to be honest, we weren't prepared. Or if the brand were to explode, we didn't have the resources to fulfill that demand. So that's why it was like, we'll get to the U.S. whenever we have a bit more structure and more infrastructure and a bit more budget to be able to fulfill that market.
How did where were you producing at the time? How did the production facilities look like? What was it?
It was a magical place. It's in San Pablo, Huixtepec, particularly with the Maestro Mezcalero Fortino Ramos. And it's very amazing to see because right now there's a new brand in the market, Lost Explorer, and they partnered with Fortino. And so it's just like I saw the brand recently and I was like, man, it's such a small world. Like Fortino pretty much taught us how to make mezcal.
We have it in the portfolio here.
Yeah, and that was the palenque that really taught us. And the Maestro, now Citlali, her daughter, she was a young girl and now she's like leading all the process with his dad. So he was there and he was pretty good. But when a few years later, my uncle Arturo decided to sell the brand to sell the brand. So what happened is like they ended up like changing to another palenque in Silacayoapan, close to Puebla. And so at that moment we were okay. This is our passion. It was like a decisive moment in our careers. We were very young. I was still about to finish my university, and so we decided to really stay in the world, right? Because that was what we were taught. That was our passion, and we had a lot of drive and really intention and I would say passion to bring different flavors in agaves to the market.
So you're in the verge of deciding what to do with your professional life because you've gained all of this experience from living the growth of a brand, the emergence of a brand that you're building in Mexico and in your international markets, you are traveling maybe,
Yes.
Presenting and introducing mezcal to the world when
Indeed.
nobody knew what mezcal was made of or how it was made. And so what happened?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It was a very particular moment. And for me, we were traveling. Back then, the government was helping small producers like ourselves to go abroad through ProMéxico.
Oh,
and
right.
so essentially what happened is they were supporting you to be able to go to assist to these events and sort of like show your portfolio or your brands. And so we were traveling a lot, showing the brands, getting mezcal all the way from São Paulo, Ixtepec to London or Tel Aviv in Israel. And that was, for me, it was like a dream come true. And so yeah, I was studying hospitality in Mexico City. And then it was like that time that, is this what I want to keep doing? And the answer was absolutely yes. And same thing with my brother. And I think that was super special because at the moment, you're just going with the flow, with the energy and the momentum. But then from now you look back and it was like, wow, I'm so fortunate that, my brother joined me in this adventure and that we were drawn and really passionate about the same thing at the same time. Because otherwise, honestly, I wouldn't think I could be here today.
Right.
And it was because of that amazing relationship and dynamic that was evolved. And so we said okay, let's continue in this industry because this is what we love. We learned great values with our uncle in terms of sustainability, social responsibility, but everyone's doing espadín, premium espadín, same sort of vision. And for us, it was a moment that we were seeing the DO. It was 95% of the mezcales are espadín from Oaxaca, which it's not necessarily something bad, but if mezcal has 9 states and it has more, over 25, 30, 40 types of agaves available, let's try to figure and feature a different region that hasn't been on the spotlight yet.
Yeah.
And so we did a road trip through Oaxaca. We went to Guerrero, we went to Michoacán, and then we ended up in Durango. And through this journey, we were looking for.
It was a long road trip.
It was a long one. We did it. We went to Mexico to Guerrero, back to Mexico City. But we took 6 months in the search.
Yeah.
And but it was you know how mezcal is, right? It has its challenges, and then it's sometimes you have the same vision as the maestro, sometimes you don't, and that's fine. And so it was looking for the right partnership with a maestro, and we ended up in Durango, and there it was where we really saw the potential.
In Durango, and we're for our audience that is not familiar with
Yes.
the geography of Mexico, most of the mezcal denomination of origin or geography, it's in the south of the country, right? The heart being the state of Oaxaca, in the Pacific coast and surrounding states. But Durango is one particular area in the northern state of Mexico, right in the south of Chihuahua.
Yep.
That also has a region where mezcal is, it's legal to produce and to grow agave there, to grow maguey, different types, and to make and produce mezcal, and to call it mezcal and to label it as such. Right?
Yes.
And it's very different than the area of the south that we were just talking about,
It's
right?
completely different. But at the same time, the magic is the same. I would say, coming from this production with Fortino in San Pablo, you get the basics, but then you go to the wild, and when you're back to Durango, it's completely different. So I would say the production, it's the same, the science behind it, but everything else is different. So the terroir is different, the methods are different, the way how the spirit is produced, it's different. So I think that was, for us, it was a really amazing thing to see.
Even the culture, right? The people from Durango are very different from the
It's
people from
completely
Oaxaca
different. Completely
and their uses, their customs, the food, their traditions.
100%. So Durango has a lot of the mining culture, and so it's still present as today. And it's a very big state with a small population. So what happens as a result is you have these massive landmarks with small inhabitants. So there are big rancherias, big mountains with unbelievable wildlife in terms of
A lot of cattle, maybe.
Exactly, a lot of cattle. There's a lot of rancherias with cattle throughout the state, and Durango also has a lot of microclimates. So if you go towards the high part on the west, you're going to see some snow in winter, and then if you go towards Chihuahua or Coahuila, it's like dry desert.
So there you go. You have snow in Mexico. People don't know that.
Oh yes, yes, it does snow, and then in the south where we are close to Nombre de Dios, it's more it's a sierra, I would say. So you have like semi-arid weather and climate, and so you get like cold winters, but then you get hot summers, and it changes a lot. If you go to Arvinata, it does change a lot, depending on the season that you go in the year.
Wow.
So Durango, we saw that, and we decided to start our story there, and so we founded Maguey Spirits in 2014 in Durango, and 10 years after, here we are, back to Oaxaca as producers once again. And I think sort of like that way we were able to close the circle and to give more information on that. We started producing with the Conde family in 2014. A few years after, we were able to build our own palenque or vinata, how we call it in Durango. And we've been producing mezcal and sotol there since 2020, since we got the vinata. And a few years ago, we started producing for BOZAL we started with the cenizo expression in Durango, but that opened us the door to be able to help them with the whole lineup. Yeah. And so we started as producers for BOZAL. And so that allowed us to go back to essentially our roots, where we started making mezcal. And a few years after, we now were able to bring this brand back to Mexican ownership, which for the first time, which that is pretty amazing for us. We couldn't be happier. Yeah. And I would say part of the vision of BOZAL now in our part of our portfolio, part of our family, is to really have it available in Mexico, because it is, I would say, it's it's a very renowned brand, not only in the U.S. but in the world. But I think in Mexico, and that's what tend to happen a lot with great agave spirits. Somehow it's easier to get to the consumers in the States or other markets, and then either there's not enough production for Mexico, or they don't want to compete against the monopolies that sell in Mexico. It's more challenging for sure. Yeah,
shout out to our friend Lucas Assis, who always says that there's better tequila in the U.S. than in Mexico. Of course, that hurts, but it's true.
It is. And as Mexicans, it's hard to admit it. No? Yeah. But and that's what we're aiming, like, even if we're going to have to make more commitments and some adjustments and anything, we want to be able to have our brand available for all the Mexican market.
That's amazing.
Starting in January next year.
That's great. That's awesome.
That's one of the first things that we want to do. And then secondly, it's just like giving more highlight to the brand. Putting more information available, just like transparency and showing the process, and for us to be able to show and really reflect what the brand is all about, featuring all the different vinatas and palenques, not only throughout Oaxaca, but Guerrero and Durango, and in the different colors as you see here. Each color it's one collection, and each collection has its own purpose within within
Yeah,
our
it's
portfolio.
it's so rich. I mean, you just summed it up in a few minutes, but your trajectory is so impressive. I want to congratulate you first. You're so young, and you've lived so much in the agave spirits world, and you are part of like the pioneers of just being involved in IBA, and now producing for others, having your own production facilities, being vertically integrated with the land that you have there in Durango, and now acquiring BOZAL, an established brand in the U.S. That's been around for a while now. When mezcal is growing so much and it's getting attention everywhere. Of course, we don't know yet that if it's going to follow the same growth trajectory as tequila did, but eventually it can become really, really big. It is so interesting and rich,
Yes.
and the history behind not just the brands and people as yourself, but all of the different regions and the types of magueyes or mezcales or agaves that can be used to produce a mezcal. Makes mezcal so like unique, and I was just in a panel with people discussing the growth of tequila and agave spirits, and somebody asked, what's the next best thing? Is it sotol? Is it raicilla? Is it? And I'm like, the next big thing is mezcal, and it's here and it's happening. It's gonna continue growing. So congratulations, thank you for being here. We love getting to know the people behind the brand. So I'm loving this section right now.
Thank you so much.
So let's dive a little bit. Let's dive
in. Absolutely.
So we're drinking the ensemble. Right?
Correct. Yes. This is the ensemble. This is the flagship of the brand. This is an ensemble that is made in Itla in Miahuatlan, and it is an ensemble of 3 different varietals. So it's Mexicano, it has also Espadín and Cuiche.
It's funny that one of the mezcales is called Mexicano. It's funny that one of the agaves is called Mexicano. You say like, wait, why does that one has to be called the Mexican and not the other one?
I love that agave. So yeah, because of the name, yeah, right? But why that one got the name? Yeah. So this is the ensemble of Mexicano, Espadín, and Barril. And so Mexicano, it's an agave. Also that grows in a similar period of time than the Espadín, so it's not an extremely old agave, but it does has more a different note, like more like chocolate or some cacao in it, which adds a different flavor profile.
What do you call extremely old in an agave?
I would say, if you go to the oldest would be at Tepestate, perhaps go all the way to 25 to 35.
Wow,
which could be the oldest. If cultivated, you can see it reduced. In some cases, I was told by a friend that it can be cultivated in 12 years or something. But in the wild, like wild Tepestate, it can take all the way to 25 to 30.
Wow.
Or larger.
And the Espadín is similar to the blue agave in tequila, like 6 to 7 years?
Yeah, more like 8.
8? Okay.
More like 8. And
same with Mexicano?
Mexicano exactly takes more sort of like 8. More or less. Mexicano tends to be a little bit bigger than the Espadín, and it's cultivated. It looks similar to Espadín, but it's a bit bigger. And then we have the Barril that really just like enhance with more minerality to it.
Is the Barril the scientific name, part of the Karwinski family?
Yes.
Okay. And those grow like taller, right? Like skinny agaves.
Exactly. So they grow in a specific region, okay, and they grow like a tree in a way, like a tree, and then part of the tree it's already the piña, which is super authentic.
It's funny to see. It's just curious to see like an elongated piña, like a cylinder almost, and that they throw in the oven there.
Yes.
So You want to go into the tasting notes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh my God, it smells so good. It's at 47%, so for compared to tequila, this could be a high proof. But I've heard from mezcaleros that mezcales actually should be at least 45% alcohol, right? What do you think?
Well, yes, that's what people say the most. It really depends on some places. If you go to some places in Guanajuato or San Luis Potosí, they really serve it locally at 38%.
Oh.
So that's arguably in Oaxaca, it does tend to be consumed at a 45 plus ABV. And of course, I would say you get more flavor. The higher the proof, well done mezcal, you're gonna get way more of that perfume, that oil. So what we wanted with this ensemble is to really have more of that flavor profile, more intense flavor. Yet at the same time, it's really it coats the palate, and it's just an amazing sipper.
It's great how I love how it really, like you said, coats your palate, your tongue, and you feel the oiliness there. So I love it. It's a little bit thick, and you can find, of course, the expressions in the aromas. You find there's no smoke in here.
I was getting to that point. The smoke is really in the back, highlighting the flavors of the agave. But it's not the soily, earthy, peated smoke that you get from other mezcales in different regions. I would say that throughout the line, and specifically this ensemble, it highlights more the agaves.
Right. So in this case, would you say that the job of the smoky note within the general profile of the spirit, is to highlight other aromas or notes, not be let's say the main character, right?
Exactly. I would say it's more agave forward, and the smoke is just in the back to highlight those flavors that we get from the three agaves. And so this one, what I love is it's an amazing sipper. It has the proof, it has the power, it has the complexity. But at the same time, it's not scary for someone that is starting.
Right.
They could be sipping on this for a 47% mezcal without a problem and just enjoying it and let it open.
I mean, I've been drinking this for a while now. I've been enjoying it, and you don't feel the alcohol punch. You don't feel like the ethanol right there. That note and that alcoholic note and characteristic that you find in some products that people and consumers sometimes take for granted and say, hey, yeah, so I'm drinking alcohol. This should smell and taste like alcohol, almost like vodka, right? But not in this product. In the really well-made agave spirits, you can't even notice that there's the alcoholic note in there. Of course, you feel you feel warm, and you feel how
in the back,
in the back, and it warms your throat and your chest a little bit, and that's how you feel the alcohol.
Yeah.
But you don't taste like rough.
Exactly, and I think that's the intention of a well-made mezcal. It's to be able to really grasp the flavors of the plant, of the terroir, and then the alcohol needs to be part of that sipping process and that flavor profile. Not upfront, not overtaking, overwhelming. It should be integrated into the flavor of the spirit.
I find the finish very long and pleasant, and some of the notes that I can find in some vegetal notes at the end, but also some like caramel. I love that I find like milk caramel. Yes. In mezcal, and it's a product that is not aged. Typically, in tequila, that's a note that you get from the aging, from the wood, from the barrels, from the char of the barrel, vanillas. But in mezcal, I find in some products that you can find the milk caramel note there, and I'm really enjoying it.
And let me challenge that comment. I think it is aged, but it's aged in life by the plant. Right? So you do get that, old, aging taste profile, and I think that's to the live aging that is done by the plant. So, you know, you get the 8 years of the espadín, of the Mexicano, the years as well of the barril, and that you get all that put together.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how you get that solid sort of like age profile.
That's awesome.
But being a blanco
Yeah.
or a joven mezcal. So,
Yeah.
totally.
Wow. Do you disclose, I mean, why don't you disclose the percentage of each type of agave in the label? Is this something
No, to be honest, well, as of now, we are acquiring the brands at this moment. We are going to be doing some changes on the label,
Right,
trying to put
right.
more information. And so this was how the old ownership wanted to have it. We have no problem disclosing, and we will see, you know, with the new labels, what information are we able to add into the labels. But I would say it's espadín for the most part in the like 70%, and then we have a mix of Mexicano and barril, right?
Yeah.
So we do want to have like our own recipe, so you know, in terms of the percentage, but it's not only that, as you know. More than that is the places, the maestro,
Yeah.
and really that integration.
Let's talk about the bottle a little bit. It's beautiful. I'm sure the video doesn't give justice, as we say in Mexico. It doesn't, no le hace justicia el video, because it just looks amazing. And I know this is a ceramic bottle, and it's made at a very fine ceramic studio in Mexico City, right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I think exactly the part of the purpose when you know, when talking about BOZAL is not only having that sensorial experience when tasting, but also from the moment that you grab a bottle, that you're transported to, you know, to the villages where it's made. And as you know, in some places in Oaxaca, you have the el barro negro, which is super traditional. And so I would say the barro, the clay or ceramic, it's the material that really transports you to this raw and organic nature of the spirit. And it's just about the minimalism, just like trying to keep it clean, but yet whenever you touch a bottle, you sort of like get that essence of what mezcal is all about.
Yeah, and also we're looking at the label, because we see some kind of fibers in the label.
All
I don't
these
know
are
if the
agave fibers.
Oh, nice.
So it's part of exactly just like trying to maintain it as clean as possible from the materials to the mezcal that it's inside. So yes, it's ceramic bottles.
Love it.
That we have the 4 different colors. Then the agave made labels, and yes, just, you know, a minimalistic label. We don't want to oversaturate.
Yeah.
We're putting all the information on the webpage, and then
Yeah.
eventually I want to add like a QR code where you can really like scan it and see like everything, all the
Go
details.
deep into the
Exactly. Not only
for the nerd,
yes,
like us.
Exactly. Not only who makes it or where, but you know the season, the year, the more the better.
Right. So let's
Jump to the next one.
to the next tepestate.
Let's do it. Single maguey.
Single maguey tepestate artesanal.
So we jump ensemble. It's meant to be an expression, as we were drinking, that you could drink neat and do in your favorite cocktail. Okay. Then we jump to single maguey. And single maguey, as the name mentions it, are individual agave varietals that are featured in this collection. In this case, we picked the tepestate, which is an outstanding agave, and we have
One of my favorites.
over 7 agaves within this line. So same color, just what's going to be changing is the agave, the region, the alcohol in that same color.
Salud.
Saludcita.
The aroma on this one is my favorite, and I'm kind of torn because I know it's mostly wild agave, and that is well, it comes with a risk, right? You know, you don't want to mess with the biodiversity and just deplete all of the agave that is out there. But and I understand that you have some practices in your company, especially to prevent that and to even improve the area and region where you operate, right?
Yes, I have a friend in the industry, Lou Bank, that says the way to save agave is to drink wild agave, which is very controversial, right? And I would say I think it's all about balance. And indeed, when you're working with wild agaves, you need to have like a plan of propagation of that agave. And so initially, when we got to Durango, for example, we have an ongoing campaign it's the 1-for-1, one bottle for one agave. So for every bottle that we sell, we're planting one agave. And so we're planting in semi-cultivation, 2 years in greenhouses, and then we put those agaves back into the wild. And so that's a way for us to be able to not only put whatever we take back, but do it in a proper way that we can even improve it in a way that really just makes that secure for that agave and for the ecosystems where we carefully are extracting those agaves from.
Thank you. We want Tepestate.
Exactly. What we want to do is do the same in Oaxaca now with BOZAL. It's part of what we're doing in Durango. Translate those same practices to be able to keep that with all the ranges that we are making with BOZAL. In Tepestate, in Jabalí, these agaves that take a long time and that are difficult to grow and
responsible agriculture, responsible sourcing practices. That is the minimum. I mean, that should be the norm, and I think that's where this kind of magueyes is what make mezcal also so rich, because if we didn't have that variety and that many different the differences between one agave and another, and we're just going to talk about the tasting notes on this one, are so wild and so big that it's a vast difference between one and another, and that it's one big particularly I think it's a big thing in mezcal, and we want to protect that. We want to make sure that we take care of that and that we have enough for the future, for our children.
I agree. No, 100%. And I think part of what we're trying to do with the Reserva is like this amazing agaves to do it like one-offs, because that it's essentially if you did a batch of Tepestate and you did only 2,000 liters for the year, that's what it is in buy. So we want to pretty much do that, implement that more than it was done in the past, because that's what they are. They're just pieces of art, and I believe they need to be treated that way.
So when you see Tepestate and this kind of magueyes, that's why most of the mezcal brands that are the higher price point is that they're using this type of agaves. And the notes that you get from an agave or a maguey like this one are, to me, are very, very herbal, and then you get like the mintiness and it's very fresh. It's minty. It's but also kind of. This is weird to say, but there are some people that find the smell of gasoline or like attractive. I'm like, I don't like smelling gasoline, but there's some of the components on that aromas that you can find here, and we call it like more processed or tertiary aromas. And how would you describe that part of the Tepestate that I love, and I don't know how to explain?
It's very raw. No, it's very, you get a like meat and leather and some of that green veggie side of it, which just like gets you to the wildest, it takes you to the wildest places where the spirit was made. And indeed, the Tepestate is, it's an agave that it's very special, not only because of the longevity, but it really gets a lot of that characteristic from the soil, from that minerality. So it's a unique agave in the taste profile. I would say the Lamparillo would be Tepestate from the north. It's similar, nice. I would say. So that would be the other agave that I would relate to Tepestate.
So we mentioned Ultramundo right before jumping into the video, right? It's mainly Lamparillo that they use.
Mainly Lamparillo, exactly. We're about to launch a special batch with them with Burrito Fiestero.
Oh, nice.
And in collaboration in Durango. So yeah, I think these are one of the oldest agaves. So there's so much flavor in it. It's really not for perhaps for your first expression if you're starting into mezcal, but
yeah.
for everyone that loves mezcal,
Uh-huh.
I think many people love to experience
Yeah,
a
so-
complex mezcal like this one.
Of course. So you what you're saying is you need a certain level of expertise drinking mezcal or appreciation to try. I mean, to really like and appreciate what this agave and this maguey brings and brings to you, right? And there's no like a newcomer into the category of mezcal. Like here in Sip Tequila, we wouldn't initiate someone into mezcal with a tepestate expression. We would go with an espadín or an ensamble. Like this is the perfect example which you just brought out from the ensamble, which is really easy to drink. As we were saying, you can't taste or smell of the alcohol hit, so it's very friendly.
Yes.
But you can have this wide range
Correct.
of expressions. How many SKUs?
24 different agaves. So we had our advent calendar, which I'll be delighted to send you one. And we featured all these agaves that we've done, like special editions. And so we have this 24 agaves that are made in artisanal, ancestral, and sacrificio production methods throughout the different vinatas that we have, the 7 in Oaxaca, plus the one in Guerrero, and the one in Durango.
Okay.
So it's like an agave library that we were able to put together,
Nice.
just like something very seasonal and created. So
That
I think
sounds-
there's one agave for everyone within our range.
Yeah.
And this tepestate, as you were saying, it's not going to be for that newbie, but it's so broad and so delicious. So
Yeah.
when the time comes for you in your journey, you're going to be able to enjoy it
Yeah.
like we're doing right now.
It is amazing. It's really good. It's really good thing. So both of these are artesanal, and you mentioned ancestral. What's the difference? Of how are these two made? Are these the same process?
Yes, so those, the yellow and the blue bottle, they're all they're artisanal mezcales. The different relies on I would say, on the blend. The ensamble is the blend of 3 different agaves, and these ones are just one single, either cultivated or wild agave.
Okay.
Like 100%, right? And then we jump to ancestral. In ancestral, what's ancestral? For the most part, like ancestral for Oaxaca would be clay distillation. It has different rules. If you comply with CRM, which means not using stainless steel, it's like pretty much a hand mill.
Why don't you walk us through the production process of
Yes,
the
perfect.
artisanal first, and then we go to the ancestral, so we can see the differences.
Absolutely. So artisanal means that, of course, there are small production artisanals like ourselves. Instead of having one massive palenque or vinata, we have 7 different throughout Oaxaca, so that instead of it highlights more the flavor and the practices and the terroir of each one of the villages in which we are.
So each of your products come from a different palenque?
Not all of them.
production?
There's some palenques that will have 2 different expressions. Like, for
Okay.
example, this one and that one, it's the same palenque.
Okay.
But this is done in the ancestral and the other in the artisanal. So artisanal, what's artisanal mezcal? It means that it is, we do the underground pit oven for the roasting of the agaves. So we hand harvest the agaves, we bring the agaves to the palenque, and then we covered the underground pit with soil, with rocks, soil, and then after coction, this would take 72 hours. Once the agaves are cooked, we take the piñas out. We have a taona in some villages. In some other villages, is molino. In some other villages, is by hand. But artisanal is for the most part in Oaxaca with the taona.
Okay.
Right. Then that shredded agave, it's going to be put into fermentation tanks. So we have the traditional Oaxacan fermentation vats of 10,000 liters. Which is like the circular one, made out of pino for the most part.
Yeah.
And then
pine tree.
Yes, pine tree. And then we would put the agave, the crushed agave. Then, depending on the region, we have mountain springs. We have pozo, which is a deep, like well or deep well, and we would add the water for fermentation, and it's all natural fermentation. After fermentation, we have double distillation in copper, and that's where we pretty much, with BOZAL, we're going to keep the hearts, take away heads and tails, and that's the part that we actually grab for putting it into our bottles.
What do you use to operate your stills? Do you use steam, or do you use fire directly into the stills?
Yes, so I would say all of them, it's wood. So it's like wood that we put, below to be fueling the steel. So it's just wood. And we are in Durango, however, trying to implement like biogas with our biodigester that creates a natural gas that we want to propel like the combustion. So it unfortunately takes longer than expected, and it's a bit challenging, but we're sort of trying to keep the traditional processes while innovating in what we can or potentially can do. Okay. But it's with wood, just small copper steels, and that's how we do our ensemble and our single magueys. The single maguey, the amazing thing is, being done in different villages, it has its own independent production process. So it's not the same to produce a single maguey in Miahuatlán than in Etla, than in Nombre de Dios Durango. Each maestro, and each region has their own thing. Sometimes it's molienda, again, with a solar shredder, like we have in Durango, or a taona, or with maso, with a wooden millet, or all of those changes have as a result a completely different product.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty about the range of BOZAL, that each one of the individual SKUs, even if it's the same color, it's going to taste and different, not only because of the agave, but everything else, no?
Correct. Yeah, each batch also.
Exactly. And so from ancestral, we jump to, from artisanal, we jump to ancestral. And ancestral means that it is, again, distilled with, for the most part, I would say, without machines and without metals, and the old traditional process. So ancestral in Oaxaca, for example, this we use our espadín as the base. The difference relies that we have the clay pots in which we are fermenting, and then we distill. But we distill also with the flor de cempasúchil, and so this is a special release, a commemorative edition that we're pretending to launch every year for Dia de Muertos, and it is super tasty. And this is a way in which you can see how espadín produced in the best possible way could be amazing, and not only because of the agave, but the addition of this traditional plant that has been used to distill.
So ancestral is even more handmade than artisanal, practically. Yeah, there are a few steps that have to be done by hand compared to the artisanal. Even considering that the artisanal is already handmade,
yes.
Almost, the ancestral, it's even more complicated because
it's way more. Imagine you're doing an artisanal, but without anything to help you. So it's just you and what you can find. That's how I would describe it. So in ancestral de molienda, for example, once you cook the agave, you're gonna grab the piece of millet, and then you're just gonna crush the agaves by hand in a canoe. So all the way from there, it's just like way more complicated, and then the sugars, or you leave more sugars behind. But as a result, what happens is, in my opinion, you do get like the real, authentic, traditional flavor of what mezcal used to taste, when it began, or the closest to that.
Correct. Yeah, of course, the yield you get, it's much lower.
It's the worst.
You're wasting a lot.
It's the worst, but I say in those ones, it's like, it is what it is. You cannot focus in productivity whatsoever. It's it's about the craft, the art, and just trying to get the best taste and the best piece of art in each one of the batches.
So that's a cempasúchil flower, like the most traditional flower, and probably symbol of the Day of the Death celebration in Day of the Dead celebration in Mexico, being the flower of cempasúchil. Is this distilled as gin, where you have a basket within the still that when the alcohol is evaporating, it takes some of the notes of the elements in the basket? Is this the same, or do you add the cempasúchil to the pot where you're distilling it?
That's I love the question because we do have like both in the sacrificio lineup. Indeed, for example, our pechugas are put into a basket. We have, for example, the guías de calabaza, and that one, it's indeed in a basket and with vapor infusion, so with the second distillation, or you're going to get that vapor that grabs those flavors, right? In the case of this cempasúchil, in particular, we do macerate it. So macerated means that the flour is put into the base of the clay pot, and then we distill it with the plant inside the still without putting a basket. And depending on the flour or depending on the agave, you're going to want to put it either in the basket or in the base, no? For example, have another brand in Durango, and that one we do both processes. And so you get the flavors in different layers. But in this specific expression, in the cempasúchil, I think when we macerate the flowers, you do get way more of that flavor, but without getting peated or not peated, but getting amargo, that bitterness to it. That sometime when you macerate, you can get a lot of that bitterness if it's done a bit more.
And you're using fresh flowers, right?
Yes. So
that's amazing.
So it's pretty amazing, and this is a recipe that we were doing for a while, but we hadn't really bottled it until recently.
You kept it for yourself.
Yes, and man, I'm very happy with the result, because really people have been able to enjoy it from the smell. I don't know what you're detecting.
Yeah. You almost have, I know that it's a espadín, but you almost get some notes of the tepestate, of the freshness. I do believe the flower and the herbaceousness that it brings to the profile, and it's really, really interesting, but also a sweetness to it. Like, it smells sweeter than the traditional espadín, and so it makes it so complex just by adding this extra step to the production.
I find it really amazing. You get some citrus, but you also get some acidity, some nice spiciness, and that's what I was saying. It's not about only the espadín. It's an espadín that is made in the best way that we can. It's an espadín that is produced ancestrally, and it's also infused with this flour that just adds up a different layer of complexity.
It's
into
amazing.
The spirit.
It really is, and I appreciate, and I'm grateful that you did it this way. That you took us from the ensamble, which is amazing itself, and to the single maguey, to the ancestrales or the sacrificio line, or the complexity or just the creativity on the production methods keep adding to the base. No, the base is just amazing. So if you have a product like this, when you're adding fresh flour to the distilling process, it's just amazing to just hearing about it is so interesting. But just experiencing the result, and you can imagine, it transports me to a palenque, even though I haven't been to one of those of yours. But I'm picturing the clay still that you use, and all of that images and aromas from the palenque are coming to mind when I'm drinking this. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. And that's the idea. The idea is to highlight and feature the different villages of Mexico that have been making this juice traditionally, and really just like bringing and bottling those amazing expressions, no? So today we would just be missing, for example, the sacrificio. This is part of the reserva.
Okay.
And the beauty, same thing with sacrificios. You're going to see in the market some pechugas. I think if you're into mezcal, you have tasted a pechuga. And what I love about what has been done with BOZAL is that it's not only the pechuga, but also we have jabalí, which is a wild boar, that might come through next year. And then we have the ibérico, jamón ibérico. Then we have the borrego, guías de calabaza, which would be the vegan version of that. And I think that's, a way to sort of like break down a super complex category like mezcal in a way that you can digest it better. Okay, this is going to be my, every day. Then single magueys when you want to compare taste, sip, do flights.
Yeah.
And then the really iconic, unique releases, which are the sacrificios and ancestrales.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Thank you, Alejandro, for
thank
being
you so
here.
much.
It is great having you. I wish you the best with BOZAL, and congratulate you in the acquisition of the brand and with your plans of doing with the brand and growing it. In Mexico also.
Yes, that's a goal.
In the US and in other markets, and I wish you the best. Thank you for being here, and next time we need to have your brother here with you too.
And you're going to need to come to Oaxaca as well to visit the palenques, Oaxaca and Durango. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Saludcita. Gracias.